Hello there. Welcome to my show, COVID-19 Update by Heerak for May 29, 2020. It's Friday, and we had our pinning ceremony, so it's a very happy day for 25 of us who are clinical nurse leaders. Uh, but there's something happening that is phenomenally epic in America.
You hear the people singing the song of angry men.
Yes, the Song of Angry Men.
Not shades again when the beating of your heart.
In the United States of America, there are singing of angry men. So as much as I want to focus on the pinning ceremony, I owe a duty to you, my viewers, and to the United States of America to talk about the social phenomena of George Floyd riots that's rocking America right now. So why are Americans so unhappy? Over 30 million Americans don't have jobs. They're unemployed because of COVID-19. They're angry. And all the things that they have put up with while they had jobs, 30 million Americans don't want to put up with it anymore. Interestingly enough, all these white unemployed people are beginning to understand how unemployed African Americans feel. So there's a convergence of empathetic sentiment. There's a lot of African Americans who are angry at not having a job, whatever the reason. And now a lot of white men are unhappy and angry at not having a job. So they have time. And they have anger. And in mental health nursing, we talk about displacement. Because you cannot take your anger out on your wife and your children, you find something else to take anger out on. And in the case of today, it's the protest of George Floyd. And the target are the police officers throughout the United States of America. The protest for George Floyd is protest against police officers. And in the French Revolution, when people rose up against power, the police and the army joined them. And at the end of the French Revolution, they executed wealthy people, billionaires and millionaires. And that is different from American Revolution, which was led by the aristocrats, wealthy individuals. So, so we're going to talk more about George Floyd and what's happening into America right now. Because there's always a possibility that this could turn into a revolt, mass revolt, and even a revolution, and that United States government can be fundamentally changed from a current democracy to another form of government. Because that's what happened in France. They had a monarchy, and then with the French Revolution, they had the French democracy. So since we have a democracy, it's possible that our democracy will be changed to another form of government. And obviously, it's hard to predict at this point what that form of government will be. But I think it's safe to say, as a historian, which I am, that that is a possibility that US government can be drastically changed. And if you just turn on your CNN right now, you see all the revolts, rebellion that's going on. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about this because I want to help you understand COVID-19 in context. COVID-19 is a virus that's spreading and killing over 1,000 American citizens every day. But there are other things that are happening that could be more traumatic, that could be more history changing. So it's not like just because we have COVID crisis, that's the only crisis we're going to have. And so I'm going to talk about this and help you to understand it because I want you to survive COVID-19. But in order to survive COVID-19, you have to understand what's going on in society, right? If you die, then you're dead, whether you die from COVID directly or indirectly by other forces in society. I'm here to help you survive the COVID-19 era. And we're entering a very unstable period in US history. And for police officers, some of you who like the police will feel bad for them because they were heroes in March, and now they're turning out to be villains in May. In 2 months, they go from hero to villain in American society. Yes, I mean, if you heard Minnesota's governor, he was kind of giving green light to the protesters. And the Attorney General of Minnesota said, well, the police officer should be arrested and charged by the county, which they did today. And now media is saying other police officers also had their knee on his neck. They should be arrested and charged for murder, meaning these police officers can go to electric chair. Now, that's a possibility. So in a sense, the cry for justice is cry for death of these police officers, arrest and execution of these police officers by using the court system. And Attorney General supports that in Minnesota, so does the governor. And I saw the tweet by Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, and they kind of support, quote, justice. And what is justice? Arrest and charging of these police officers as murderers, which means they could be executed. So it's kind of interesting that police officers are kind of being targeted and criticized and kind of vilified by Republican senators like Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. And that's a social phenomena that is clearly divergent from the past when Republican senators always stood up for the police, which in and of itself is a serious social change that may have repercussions in the short run and the long run. So what happened that even the Republican Party is calling for justice, which is basically arresting and executing the police officers through the court of law. So let's go to today's COVID-19 numbers, and then we could discuss a little bit more. As I said, over 1,000 people are dying every day from COVID-19 in America. That's not slowing down. I have said from the very beginning that COVID-19 um, is a 365 days a year virus and not like a seasonal flu. I've said that from the very beginning. I disagree with Dr. Fauci and WHO on that. Now they're coming to my position and kind of agreeing with that. Um, so yesterday, the total death number in America was 101,573. Today, the total death number is 102,808. And confirmed cases are going up between 20 to 30,000. So yesterday we had 1,719,855. Today we have 1,745,930. And let's just go down to Europe's top five. Russia has 387,623 cases, and the total death rate is at 4,374. So 1% of the cases are dying. United Kingdom, there are 272,607 cases, and they have 38,243 deaths, which is 14% of the cases. Spain is number 3, and they have 238,564 cases, and they have 27,121 deaths, which is 11% of the cases. Italy has 232,248 cases, and they have 33,229 deaths. France is number 5 with 186,923 cases, and they have 28,717 deaths, which is 14% of the cases. Now you see on the screen, basically protest that's happening throughout America right now, today. And on the left side, you see CNN. That's the protest that's happening in Atlanta, Georgia. And they, broke through the window and they set fire around there. So that's Atlanta, Georgia. In the middle, next to that, you have New York City protest. And then next to that, you have Springfield, Massachusetts protest. Next to that is Chicago. Next to that is Washington, D.C., right out of the White House. There are thousands of people protesting in each area that is represented here. And as you can see, the protesters are not all black. Now you have an Asian protester with a Christian shirt. You have white protesters. And this is what I mean. Right now, the song of angry men, as you heard the song, is the song that is being sung by non-white people, whites, Asians, and blacks. And that's what separates this protest from the previous Black Lives Matter protests. So the question is, why are so many non-blacks protesting? As I said before, there's displacement. There are a lot of Americans who are angry, but they don't want to take that anger out on their loved ones, like wife or their children or their parents. So they're taking their anger out on George Floyd. Many of them don't know who George Floyd is. Some of them don't even really care that much, but they need to express their anger. And herd mentality is working in this expression of anger. There are over 30 million Americans without jobs because they're unemployed, and many of them are white. These white people who don't have jobs are beginning to experience social psychological impact of being unemployed, which evidence-based research says impacts self-efficacy for many people. Like they begin to doubt themselves. So many white Americans are beginning to doubt themselves because they're unemployed, because their job gave them meaning. And now they are channeling their anger to something that is socially justified, because governor of Minnesota said this is justified protest. Attorney General of Minnesota said this is justified protest. Ted Cruz, senator in the Republican Party, Marco Rubio, senator in the Republican Party, all are calling for justice, which is code word for fry the police officers in the electric chair. So now you have not only Democrats who used to protest against police on the scene, now you have Republicans on the scene who are protesting. And Christian Broadcasting Network, an evangelical Christian media, they said George Floyd, taught Bible study and is a good Christian. And they're also calling for justice against police officers. And I have never seen evangelical TV channel calling for a type of attack of police officers before. So that's a new thing. So now you have this targeted hatred of the police in America that has participation by Republican Party senators who have traditionally been very pro-police, participation by evangelical Christians and practicing Catholics who have always been pro-police, and you have Christians who are arguing that this is a Christian cause. I mean, partly because you have Christian Broadcasting Network and other TV networks that are Christian calling for justice for George Floyd. So some are kind of thinking of this as a Christian cause. So there's a herd mentality against the police. So police officers, first responders who were heroes in March are now enemies of the people, villains, evil people. So attack of the 4 police officers in Minnesota necessarily degenerates respect for police officers in all 50 states. Because it's kind of like if you have one terrorist bomb America in 9/11, you develop a sentiment against others who you identify them with. That's just the way people work. And so you can expect this to degenerate respect for police officers throughout America. Every little thing police officers do, they may face criminal charges. Now, obviously, from a policy and administration perspective, that can develop into serious problems. Number one, there are criminals out there who have to be arrested. If the police officers are afraid to arrest like criminals, real criminals, crime rate will perpetuate and grow. So that's one danger that the society will face, for sure. Second thing is, because that police officers are shown hatred, you're going to have a lot of honest police officers becoming corrupt. Because, they no longer have respect for themselves or respect for their job. And logically, those police officers respected themselves and stayed away from the criminal elements. But as they lose respect in themselves and they see that people don't respect them, they're more likely to become corrupt police officers, kind of working together with the criminal element, drug trafficking, prostitution. So corrupt police officers will exponentially grow in number throughout the United States of America. So that's one sociological phenomena you have to expect. And the third phenomena that you will have to expect is you're not going to have many people who are decent and good wanting to become police officers, because they are like, I could try to arrest someone and you know, I could end up becoming arrested myself. And so, so there's going to be sociological, like an impact uh, in all 50 states because of this. And I predict crime rate will rise tremendously. And as I have said to President Trump and Larry Hogan, governor of Maryland, and Ralph Northam, governor of Virginia, Mayor Bowser, mayor of DC, Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, and through my tweets, you shouldn't open up America right now, your state or city. You shouldn't listen because obviously you cannot have these massive protests if the country were still closed down. But because you open up, like some places opened up completely, now you have done it too quickly. So people who have been cooped up and they've been angry about what's going on in their lives, and right now all the class of 2020, they don't have jobs and they won't for the next several years because of COVID-19. They are channeling their anger through these protests because there's nothing else to do. What's there to do? There's no sports, there's no entertainment, there's no movie theater. They've been cooped up in their home and they're upset and angry. And they need to express their anger. And now you have this event that is happening. And then you have all these people saying, yeah, you should go and protest. So, of course, they're going to go and protest. As they protest peacefully, obviously, any kind of peaceful protest can become violent. And so, who knows? We may have police officers killed tonight. We just don't know. These protests could go out of hand, and you could have protests getting killed and police officers getting killed. I mean, we just don't know what's going to happen tonight. We have to see the news tomorrow morning to see what happened. And so, let's say police officers killed several protesters tonight, trying to defend their life because maybe protesters were threatening their lives. Even if it's a legitimate self-defense, just the fact that police shot and killed somebody will probably raise the numbers of violent protests. You see what's going on? So this is kind of like cause and effect chain that has started, which most likely will not be controllable. Now, what is the end result of these protests? We just don't know. This is one of these historical forces of nature that is developing, and it could go in a million different ways. Now, as I said, if President Trump, governors, mayors listened to me and did not open up to COVID, we would not be having these protests. But you didn't listen. I'm here with this show trying to help you. Opening up the country before the society is stable and there are economic opportunities for people is just irresponsible, in my opinion, because they've been fired from their job or laid off. It's not like they're going to have a job when you open it up. So in terms of order of doing things, you need to get the jobs back before you open up. That way, when you open up, they're going to their job 9 to 5. They don't have all this extra time on their hands. But when you open up first, before you secure jobs for these people who have been unemployed or fired to go back to, then you're just asking for problems. Like I said, loitering, right? They're all loitering in a way. They have nothing better to do. They don't have a job. You have all these college graduates without a job. You open up the country. What do you think is going to happen? Social unrest, violence, right? So we don't know where this is going to go. And I think the Democrats and the Republicans, both of them are kind of not seeing the potential of societal violence. I'm a historian and I've studied revolutions, revolts, social unrest for a long time. So this can actually end up with a revolution, violent revolution with millions of Americans killed, or type of civil war where people are killing each other. If you think that just because there's global pandemic that there can't be a civil war or there can't be a revolution, violent revolution that kills millions of people, you're absolutely mistaken. Yeah, because there's a point at which people lose their self-control. And the Song of Angry Man is a type of expression of that, right? It's a musical from Les Miserables, spelled Les Miserables, L-E-S, space Miserables, M-I-S-E-R-A-B-L-E-S. And you can watch the musical on Netflix. So this could die down. Obviously, that's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is that this could eventually become a revolution or a civil war that becomes very violent, resulting in death of millions. I mean, right now, this is happening in every major city. So social phenomena is there for people to kill or be killed, right? They're angry to start with. Police officers are angry from COVID-19. Everybody who's protesting is angry. They're angry from COVID-19. Their patience is short because of COVID-19. A lot of people may have someone they know who died from COVID-19. They be getting angry and angry in the last 2 months. So this can become a very violent social unrest. That is definitely possible. What are you going to do? Send the soldiers in and start killing the citizens? Yeah, maybe that's what they want, right? And so we don't know where this is going to go. That's why I'm saying all of you should have listened to me and not opened up. Because you're looking just at the economy. People are not just dollar signs. They have feelings, emotions, they have needs for love, belonging, peace, a mind. And you can't just open up a country when you haven't secured a job for all 30 million people who've lost the job. It's just not a very wise way to go. So we're not going to know what's going to happen with this. The chances that this is just fizzle out is very little. And it seems to be that this is just growing by leaps and bounds, which means it's going to continue to grow. So now we have thousands of people in every city kind of gathering. It could go into 10,000s of people, grow to hundreds of thousands of people. We just don't know. So obviously things have started. And that's the serious problem. Now, I do have a picture of myself because, today was the pinning ceremony. So I have to celebrate a little bit. So, so indulge me a little bit, pinning ceremony. Congratulations to all the clinical nurse leader class of 2020 who were pinned today. All 25 of us were pinned. I love you guys. Pin. Yeah. So even in hard times, you got to celebrate. But look at this photo. Why have I chosen these photos to share with you? Look at the people who are protesting the police. NBC News, they're all white. And they look like what? They look like they're like middle class, college graduates, probably Generation X or Generation Z class of 2020 who don't have jobs. They're really angry at the situation and they're not going to take their anger against the police. Now you have underneath that NYPD police officer arresting a woman, white woman, who's taken up this revolt And she doesn't even really have a, George Floyd sign anywhere. Right? She's just protesting, and that highlights what I'm saying. There's this anger, um, and they're just kind of vilifying or demonizing the police. Right? It's not about George Floyd anymore for some of these white people who are protesting. It's just they need to target somebody as evil. And they have chosen to target the police, unfortunately. Now, you see another white woman being arrested there, and you have one white woman holding up sign, Justice for George. She's the only one. Everyone else isn't really talking about George, right? If there's a sign, Justice, but where's George? And this is the way social unrest happens. Initial reasons why some of the people started protests gets lost in the shuffle, and it just becomes expression of social discontent. And the original reason becomes irrelevant. And that seems to be what's happening here. And I'll keep you informed as this develops further, which direction this is going to go. But as I said, there is a potential for police to kill the protesters and protesters to retaliate by killing the police. And it can snowball from there into armed conflict and military conflict. It can go anywhere. So let's see. I'll keep you informed because obviously it's related to COVID-19. As I said, if you did not open up the country, this would not be happening. They won't be able to protest because there's stay-at-home order. As soon as they come out of their home, they could be arrested for violating stay-at-home order, right? You can't do that anymore because it's open. Yeah. This is why slow opening is wise. Sometimes people get blinded by dollar signs. There are many factors to consider than just dollar signs. Now in Phoenix, Arizona, look at the people who were arrested yesterday. Phoenix, Arizona has a lot of black people. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people who are arrested are white. Only one black woman. It shows you there are a lot of white people protesting. Do they look like crazy people to you, these white people who are arrested? They look like the girl next door, except for the guy. White guy looks a little bit kind of like Unabomber. But look, the blonde woman next to the white guy on top, she looks like she could be a teacher. The girl with the brown hair next to him, she looks like just a nice girl next door. The girl next to her, she looks like she may have a wild side, but she still looks like she's like a middle class woman, right? Underneath that, she looks like she could actually be like a wealthy girl, but she's there, and the girl next to that, you have a blue hair girl, but you don't see like hard criminal lines on their faces, right? And so what's happening is a kind of a unified social discontent expression that involves people of all social classes, education levels. And that's why I think Democrats and Republicans should worry, because I think this could end the US as a country as we know it faster than COVID-19 will, as this protest grows. How are you going to stop this protest? I'd like to hear people talk about how they're going to stop this protest. I'd like to hear their ideas on it. Because it's not just about Minnesota's police officers, is it? I mean, now a lot of different issues are getting tapped onto it, a lot of different police departments throughout the country. You arrest and convict and send to the electric chair all 4 Minnesota police officers. Do you think this protest will end? You think like police department in Philadelphia, Phoenix, Los Angeles, Chicago, Atlanta, they haven't made any mistakes? People make mistakes. That's what makes us human. But now mistakes are being glorified as what? Evidence of evil, right? Some may be intentional, but it may be in the heat of anger. I mean, everything is not what it seems. And so this is kind of going in a direction that portends to be maybe the end of the United States as a nation as we know it. And that's definitely a possibility. Now, the problem with what the states and mayors and the government did is that they started arresting church pastors during COVID-19. You know why this is a problem? Because who arrests the pastors? It's the police. So you have evangelical Christians who've always supported the police, but they see on their television screen their pastor getting arrested or an evangelical pastor getting arrested by the police. All the positive, fuzzy feelings they may have for the police can be gone. In which case, they may no longer support the police. In which case, they actually want to see police officers suffer the way that this pastor suffered after he was arrested. Because human beings like to see revenge, retaliation for suffering. So the police departments have a problem because it may be that only few pastors were arrested by few police officers in few states, but people saw that on TV. And in their mind, police officers are no longer good, but evil because they're arresting servants of God. And that is why you have all these Christians with Christian t-shirts, people who've never committed a crime in their life, who used to love police officers. Now they're there protesting against the police. So in a sense, it's not the fault of the police because they just follow orders. But the problem is when people see the TV, they don't process all that. All they see is the police officer arresting a pastor or a Christian servant, leader. And so there's a serious problem. Look at this. Underneath the photo of the rest of the pastor, you have these white people who are late Middle Ages or elderly who are now protesting against the government. And these are probably card-carrying Republicans who would never protest. And now they're protesting against the government. They're becoming anti-government because governors shut down the churches. So these are people who would never break laws. These are people who always respect the police, always respect the laws and government. Now they have become anti-government, anti-law, because it's the law that has shut down their churches. So you have a social phenomenon now that local, state, and federal laws are no longer respected by US citizens. And the repercussions of that will be felt in history for years to come. And you don't know what's going to happen because of this phenomena. Coronavirus church closings were a mistake, as I said from the very beginning. You do not take religion away from the people. You let them open the churches. If they go there and die, they're not going to blame the government. They're just going to, say, oh, I went to church and I died. They're not going to blame the government. In a sense, they're going to have positive feelings about the government, even as they die in the thousands. There are certain things you have to do as a government not to raise the anger of the people. And opening churches is one of them. You can require them to wear a mask. You can require, them to social distance, but you cannot close the churches down. Think about this. Now we're in May. COVID-19 hasn't changed. And all the governors are saying, just wear a mask, go to church. In their mind, that could have happened in March. Do you see what's going on? So you have delegitimized yourself by opening up and saying, just go to wherever with a mask. Because they're thinking to themselves, We could have done this in March. Why did they lock us in for 2 months? Whenever you make a decision as a government, you need to think about the ramifications of your actions. If COVID-19 has changed or we have a vaccine and you open up, it makes logical sense to people. Oh, in March they locked us in, and that makes sense because they wanted to prevent the spread. But now that we have a vaccine or a cure, they're allowing us to move around and go to church, go to school, go to shopping center, right? But nothing has changed. We don't have a cure. We don't have a vaccine. So, in an average American mind, and we're talking about 330 million Americans, they're thinking, why did they even shut down America in the first place? Because they could have just told us to wear a mask. Nothing has changed. So, in a sense, each government, city government, state government, federal government has delegitimized themselves by opening up when there's no real excuse to open up. To President Trump's credit, he says he's now taking hydrofluoroquine. So at least he's logical. He's like saying, I think we should open up our country, and I'm going to take hydrofluoroquine to protect me against COVID. I'm taking it prophylactically, and I would encourage that. So I think we can open up now. So at least President Trump has a rational mind that makes sense to people, right? But everyone else, Ralph Northam, Larry, Governor of Maryland, Mayor of DC, Governor Cuomo, they don't make sense to people. They're like, why did you shut the country or state or city down in the first place? Because nothing has changed. And what does that do? It delegitimizes you. Meaning, everyone who looks at Ralph Northam, everybody who looks at Larry Hogan, everybody who looks at Mary Bowser, now they're saying, oh, you're just full of it. You closed the city or the state down. Nothing has changed. You just opened it up. You just don't know what you're doing. And that's what the people in Virginia are thinking of Governor Northam. People in Maryland are thinking of Governor Hogan. People in DC are thinking of Mary Bowser, which means they will lose confidence. And do you know what happens when people lose confidence in their government? And that's what's happening now. Political scientists say social chaos results, social unrest results. So apparently, we're experiencing it right now. All these people who are protesting throughout the United States of America, they have lost confidence in the government, and they don't trust government officials anymore. They may trust President Trump because he's actually been kind of rational throughout the whole thing, right? When he opened up country, he's like, I'm taking hydrofluoroquine and, to protect me from COVID. So you should too. At least he's rational, right? So when they look at President Trump, they're like, oh, he's a rational guy. He makes sense. So he doesn't lose legitimacy because he has something, an excuse. So whenever you cough, the molecules go out. And with a homemade mask like this, it doesn't fully block it. It's like only 30 or 40% effective. So you can wear this mask and still transmit to others. And you could also get it because it's only 30 or 40% effective. Now, as I said, you should have never closed down the churches because people are willing to die going to churches. And the governors and mayors were inconsistent because they allowed the food stores to be open, Giant, Walmart, Target to be open. So US citizens are thinking, well, you allowed grocery stores to open and we go there like once a week. Why couldn't you let us go to church once a week? How are you going to answer that? There's no way to answer that criticism. So you're losing your legitimacy because you're not making sense. You didn't close down grocery stores, but you closed down churches. And you even arrested pastors who had church services. So in the minds of 330 million Americans, government is evil, government cannot be trusted. Mayors, governors, even Republicans who closed down the state and not allowed you to go to church, these people are evil in their mind. And if you have received tweets from Republican senators or governors who said, stay at home, don't go to church, they have lost their credibility with the American people, especially because United States have opened up. Every state has opened up now, which makes American people look at the situation and say, why did you close down our churches in the first place? Because we don't have a cure, we don't have a vaccine. You're opening up now. You should have never closed our church down. So they have this discontent and a grudge against every governor, every mayor, Republican or Democrat, who either closed down the church or supported closing down the church. And you know who tweeted these out. I never supported closing down the church. And as you know from this show, you know how much I want to protect you from COVID-19. But there are certain things more sacred in human life and experience than protection from COVID, and that's religion. You never mess with people's religion because people are willing to die for their religion. So the fact that all these Republicans and Democrats supported closing down churches now has delegitimized every Republican and Democrat throughout the United States. And that is why I'm saying you can potentially see the end to the United States government as we know it. Because American people have lost their faith in the US government at local, state, and federal levels. They see the US government as coercive because they shut down the churches when they needed the church most. When American people wanted to go to church to pray, to be comforted, to hear the sermon, to sing God's praises song, because COVID-19 took their job away. Some of them had their loved ones die. Because the governors, mayors who were Republican, Democrats shut the cities down, stayed down, they have a grudge against them. And they have anger against the government. Some of them are realizing it. Some of them haven't really fully processed their anger. So you will see in the next coming weeks and months what will happen to American society because of your actions. You should have listened to Heerak, Christian Kim. Never close down the churches. If you don't close down grocery stores, do not close down churches. That's a rule of thumb. You cannot justify closing down churches when you don't close down grocery churches. And 330 million Americans feel that way. So how are you going to mend that feeling? It's impossible. You've done it for 2 months. And I've gotten tweets from Republican senators supporting this. Are they crazy? That comes to show you how corrupt establishment Republicans have become, supporting closing down churches. As I said, if you open the churches, people will die from COVID. I've never denied that. I said, if you open the churches, people will go to church, get COVID, and die. I've said this in this show. But the fact is, if you use law and police to close down churches, you're going to have people angry at you. And this is not happening just in the United States. It's happening in United Kingdom. It's happening in France. It's happening in Spain. It's happening in Italy. And you will see what will happen in the future. You will see the repercussions of your actions because you're now opening up. Even though there's no cure, even though there's no flattening of the curve, even though there's no vaccine. So you are effectively delegitimizing yourselves. You are basically cutting off your own heads. As we speak right now, you're cutting off your own heads because you're opening up without a vaccine. You're opening up without cure. And your days are numbered. We don't know what's going to happen. We may have an armed revolt, in one of the states or a few of the states, a few of the cities. We just don't know what's going to happen with this revolt that's happening. And if it's not this revolt, it could be another revolt. Now, let's say in Washington, D.C., police officers start firing gun at the people, and people start firing back. And you have 100 people killed or with a gunshot wound. Can you imagine how much the hospital will be flooded with these cases? And this is all the while COVID-19 is going on. It is possible to have a very bloody and violent civil war or revolution that kills millions at the same time while you have a virus that's killing millions. That's definitely possible. And it's becoming more and more likely in the next year or two, sooner maybe, in a few months, maybe a few weeks. Let's see what happens tonight. Let's see if anybody gets killed. Remember, it's like COVID-19. You may not get COVID-19 today, but you could get it tomorrow and die. Maybe no police officers will kill any protester today, but there's always tomorrow. There's always day after tomorrow. Do you think these protests will stop when all the police officers are arrested and charged and put into electric chair? You think the protests will stop after you give them what they want? Do you understand the nature of protests? Popular protests? It's kind of like negotiating with terrorists. What happens when you give terrorists what they want? Do they just stop being terrorists? Obviously, I don't want to call American people terrorists, but it's similar. When discontented people make demands and you give them the demand that they want, they're not just going to stop. It encourages them. It emboldens them. And that's why U.S. government under President Reagan said, never negotiate with terrorists. Obviously, the situation is different. But all I'm saying is, you could have handled this differently. And I would have handled this differently. Obviously, I want justice for African Americans. And I want fairness for African Americans. Well, let me share with you what I did yesterday. As you know, I'm doing my Master's of Science at School of Nursing and Health Studies. The focus on becoming a clinical nurse leader. Because right now there's COVID-19, we have these simulations that we're supposed to do. And one of the simulations that I'm doing now is called shadow health. So in this simulation, it simulates the hospital. Because nursing students are not allowed in hospitals right now because of COVID-19, it could kill you. So we have these simulations that we do. And I'll share with you what simulation I did yesterday. I did simulation, I think it was module 3. And it was about confrontation. So a patient is angry. And the one case that I had was the patient wanted a halal food. Halal is like Muslim food that excludes pork. So the patient in this module, it's all like cartoonish people, but it's like in a video format because it's like a simulation. Mr. Haddad in the module demanded halal food, and he did not get halal food. And he was angry because lithotripsy that was supposed to have been performed to get rid of his kidney stones, which are very painful, was not performed. So he's angry that his procedure was not performed, and now he has to have an open surgery. Lithotripsy is like, you don't cut your body up. You just kind of try to break down the stones that's in your kidney through like, kind of, from the outside by like kind of using certain scientific device that doesn't penetrate the skin. So you don't get a cut, but you break the stones from outside, through like vibration and stuff like that. Um, but it could be a little bit painful, but he didn't get this procedure according to the module. And so he's upset and angry. He was not told to eat because of what they thought as, this procedure they were supposed to get. Um, but, which did not happen. So now he has to stay in hospital one more day. So now he gets his food. And it's not halal. And he's like a practicing Muslim. He eats halal. Like no pork, Muslim diet, religious diet. So he gets angry at the nurse. And I'm the nurse in the simulation who's taking care of him. So he's getting angry at me and saying, why do I have no halal food? So he's like, this, simulation figure, Mr. Haddad. And I'm supposed to maneuver through this angry situation where the patient is angry because he didn't get what he wanted. So, there are several choices, I could say X, Y, and Z. So the wrong answer is to give him what he wants because his demands are what? Number one, punish the nurses who let this happen, like get them fired from their job. Obviously, they made a serious mistake in sending him non-halal food, right? And he's angry because he didn't get the surgery, like the procedure they were supposed to get. So he's angry at everybody, and now he's trying to, like, he has this displacement. He's getting angry at me, the nurse who's kind of taking care of him in the simulation. And I could say, okay, I'm going to give you what you want, all your demands. I'm going to give you all your demands. But that's the wrong answer. The right answer is, I'll go and check and see, what happened and get back to you. So I go to the nurse who took him his information and who made the mistake of not getting him halal food. And I find out what happened. And in the simulation, she assumed that he wasn't going to eat because he had this procedure and he was going to go home. But because of the complication, he stayed another day, so he needed food. And because she did not write down what his dietary requirements were, he got a normal food. Obviously, she didn't follow hospital policy because you're still supposed to write it down regardless of whether he's going to stay in the hospital or not. So she made a mistake. So in this simulation, I as a nurse go and find out what the error was that this nurse made. And I'm supposed to kind of support her, but also like kind of remind her of the policy. Because obviously she's a valuable nurse. You can't just fire a nurse even during non-COVID times because nurses are needed. So we have to figure out a way to like support the nurse so the nurse doesn't make that mistake again. But we also have to satisfy the customer or the patient. So I come back from after interacting with the nurse in the module, in the simulation, and I talk to the patient, Mr. Haddad, and I say, I conveyed this information to her, and she had made this mistake because she thought you didn't have to eat anything because of your procedure, and she didn't write down what she needed to write down. So I kind of explained to her, and she's going to send up halal food for you. So in the simulation, Mr. Haddad's still angry, but he's like, yeah, I'm angry, but I'm going to get halal food, and so I guess it's okay. So he drops the demand to get her fired. So one of the things that we nurses get trained on is how to communicate with angry patients and try to diffuse the situation so it doesn't get out of hand. Right? It's one of the skills that we need. And as you know, I'm a elementary school teacher and I deal with angry parents all the time. who may be angry that their child got a bad grade on an exam, even though it was a child who didn't study. And you have to figure out ways to diffuse the situation and keep them happy. And generally, you can't always give them the demands that they want, right? You have to figure out a way to handle them. This is the same kind of situation. Obviously, I believe that we need to create a fairer society. We need to create a society where African Americans are treated well. But there are more pieces than just African Americans. There are white people who are the majority in America. There are police officers. Do you need the police to keep peace and arrest criminals? In COVID-19, you know how many police officers in New York died because of COVID-19? I mean, they're making a lot of sacrifices. And the question is, how do you balance all that? And because I guess COVID-19 has worn people down, it seems to me that Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio hasn't really thought things from the police's perspective. And so, to President Trump's credit, he's kind of trying to balance the situation, right? He's trying to be fair to the African Americans, but he's also trying to work with the police. So this is why I voted for him in 2016, and this is why I'm planning to vote for him again in 2020. I think President Trump is a very good president. He's been dealt a bad hand, but he's performed well every time. In this situation, I think he's performed better than most politicians who just make it easy, like black and white. Situations are not that simple. There are so many moving parts that you have to work with. And so, we don't know where this is going to go. Because in a sense, Minnesota's governor threw the police under the bus. Minnesota's attorney general threw the police under the bus. Do you think the police officers are going to be loyal to the governor or the attorney general after this? Or their county district attorney? Then, what do you think is going to happen in the long term because of this situation? So there are so many pieces you have to work with, but you cannot have governor just throwing police officers under the bus on live TV. I mean, that's just not a smart policy move because you need the police. I assure you, in Minneapolis Police Department, I guarantee you there are hundreds of police officers who are saying right now among each other that what governor in Minnesota did is wrong, to just throw their co-workers under the bus. I assure you there are hundreds of police officers in Minnesota who are angry at that. Who knows what they're going to do? I mean, they could always do things after their police work time in unmarked clothes. I mean, how are you going to monitor all that? I mean, you don't know what's going to happen because of this. And if you think there will not be retaliation after this by Minneapolis police officers, especially those who feel like their workers were just thrown under the bus without any kind of consideration. I mean, you don't have to do it quickly, right? You gotta take steps. You gotta empathize. You gotta sympathize. There are a lot of steps that you have to take just to demonize the police officer is not the smartest move because there are different steps you have to take. Right? Everybody has good points. Everybody has bad points. You gotta balance. And that's not what Minnesota governor did. Or that's not what Minnesota attorney general did. And so you're going to have a problem in Minnesota and Minneapolis. And there are a lot of white people in Minneapolis who actually side with the police. And so the problem is this going to create a greater racial divide? All I'm saying is we don't know what's going to happen in America in the next few weeks, months, years. As I say, I'm not going to be surprised if there's a violent war, civil war or revolutionary war and our government changes from our current format to another format. I wouldn't be surprised because I'm an historian, I'm an expert in history, and you know, there's enough social discontentment there for government to go in any direction. Because people are at a very unstable situation right now, individually, socially, communally, locally, state-wise, county-wise. You just don't know where this is going to go. Make sure you watch my show every day because I'm going to keep you updated. I'll give you analysis. And obviously, I'll warn you if you need to avoid things that you need to avoid in order to survive. But as I said, President Trump and Andrew Cuomo and all these governors should watch this show every day because I give you advice. And I'm the Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century. The advice I give makes sense. And if you took my advice, this would not be happening. You see what I'm saying? People are just too quick to jump and do things without thinking. And this is a serious problem. During times of peace, when majority of Americans are employed, there's less than 4% unemployment rate, there's a lot of buffers in society. Whereas there's no buffers now. You have over 30 million Americans unemployed. You have over 30 million Americans under the poverty line. You have probably 80 to 90% of class of 2020 without jobs. We don't know what's going to happen. We just don't know what's going to happen. It looks like some of those individuals in Phoenix, Arizona are class of 2020. Probably don't have a job and they're just finding a way to just express their anger in a way that is socially acceptable, which this protest they may think is. Yeah, we're headed to the danger zone right now, and I worry for the United States of America because I think a lot of violence can happen in the future by a lot of good people. Because good people do violent things too. Yeah, so we'll see. What will happen, but yeah, it's not going in the right direction. Definitely not going in the right direction. But yeah, keep checking back at this show, and I'll keep you updated. And I'll try to help you and your family survive this COVID-19 and everything that's happening around us. But now we have two major problems in America. That's COVID-19 that could kill millions, and this developing social unrest that could kill millions of Americans potentially. So yeah, keep tuned, and I'll keep you updated. But yeah, we're not going in the right direction as a country. Yeah, so I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. I hope that you will be well and that your family will be well too. As you know, I, Heerak Christian Kim, am running for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District, and I've created this show to save you and your family. So vote for me on November 3rd, 2020, because you need me. You need me far more than I need you. Let's be honest here. You've been watching my show. You need me as your congressman. But you need me far more than I need you. So yeah, so help me get on the ballot. As I explained, Ralph Northam, the Virginia governor, is trying to block me out of Virginia's ballot box. And just, I don't know, I see that as kind of not really being nice. I'm an official candidate for U.S. Congress, registered with Federal Election Commission, FEC. I'm also registered with U.S. House of Representatives, Office of the Clerk. So Nancy Pelosi knows that I'm an official candidate in Virginia's 8th District. But every state has their own election laws, and Virginia does as well. And in Virginia's law, I have to submit 1,000 signatures by June 9th. So I still have time, but time is kind of running out. And Virginia Governor Northam issued a stay-at-home order from March 30th to June 10th. So I haven't been able to go and collect signatures because it's illegal to do so. Yeah, so even now it's illegal. Yeah, just call up Governor Northam, write to him and say, give Heerak Christian Kim the waiver, because I wrote to him. And, Virginia Board of Elections said, he doesn't have the authority, legal authority to give me a waiver. But obviously Virginia Governor Northam does. So contact him, tell him, give Heerak Christian Kim the waiver, and get me on the ballot. You need me there in U.S. House of Representatives representing you. So anyway, yeah, so make sure you do that tomorrow or today. And yeah, so I look forward to speaking with you tomorrow and giving you more information that you need to survive COVID-19. And now, potential social unrest, yeah, which you need to keep up with. So I'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Be well. Bye.